Hello everybody, my name is Anson. Welcome to a brand new Let's Play series in Hearts of Iron IV New Order. It is time to play a little bit of Mexico. I think either it was a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago at this point. There's an update for New Order. They've added in a tree for Mexico, and we're going to be playing that today. I don't know how much content there is. I don't know if it goes all the way to like 1972. Maybe it only goes like 66, 68. Not too sure. We're going to get started here. So the Epoch of Change. The presidency of Lazario Cárdenas was the new beginning for the languishing Mexican Revolution. The collectivization of the farmland into ejidos has brought significant change to the countryside. Landmark efforts to educate the country had begun, and the popular movement itself was incorporated into the United Corporatist Organization, Partido de la Revolución Mexicana. Under his firm hand, Mexico was at last moving towards socialism. The biggest event of Cárdenas' sexenio was the 1938 nationalization of oil. At a stroke, Mexico reclaimed its sovereign rights to the greatest resource. However, this caused tremendous outrage, mostly with the oil companies in the United States. Faced with the tensions from the oil exportation, the next president, Manuel Elvira Camacho, would adopt a more moderate approach. He ended the thorny issue with the church and rolled back many of the outright socialist policies, like socialist education. This did not seem to placate the new American government, however, which led to a personal rift that kept Mexico from fully committing to the Western Allies. Mexico would never join the war, and often resisted pressure from the United States to fully eliminate Falangist and fascist groups. The war did, however, affect Mexico. The higher commodity prices and the lack of European exports convinced the PRM the way to a brighter future lay in the industrialization and the opening to global markets. And attention with the United States convinced them a new ally was needed in the hemisphere. President Miguel Alemán was responsible for the massive post-war shift in revolution. A new opening to the Japanese brought in a new partner that would reduce the reliance on the Americans. Foreign investors in the industry and tourism would also grow the economy, leading to the Mexican miracle and rampant corruption. At home, Alemán would solidify his power through the new Dirección Federal de Seguridad, a secret police force. But perhaps his greatest accomplishment was the reformation of the PRM into the Party Revolucionario Institucional, and the solidification of Mexico into a de facto one-party state. After a controversial election in 1952, Adolfo Ruiz Cortines would seek to restore faith in the revolution by tampering down on the excesses of Alemán. Through fighting corruption and building infrastructure, Ruiz Cortines kept the miracle going. However, it was clear more was needed. Providing a velvet glove and an iron fist, Adolfo López Mateos had overseen populist policies and violent crackdowns since 1958. He brought Mexico into the world stage by promoting it as the center of neutrality and reason. However, his vision still faced massive tests. If there is an ideology to the PRI, it is based around maintaining order through left populist handouts, state capitalist economics, and brutal repression. This is represented first and foremost by the second most powerful man in Mexico, Gustavo Díaz-Ordaz, the Interior Secretary. Holding this role often means he manages the state apparatus to buy loyalty and snuff out dissent. An heir apparent to Ordaz needs the party structure to help him win the elections with some degree of legitimacy. The man responsible for that is Alfonso Corona del Rosal, former general and head of the PRI. Longtime party functionaries like him are key to ensuring the revolution maintains its course. The economic growth has solidified the PRI's hold on power, can be traced back to one man, Finance Secretary Antonio Ortiz Mena. He has been giving a free hand to run the economy through export-focused state capitalism by successive governments. It has worked extremely well, guaranteeing stabilized development, consistent growth, and little inflation. However, Mexico is still facing dire poverty and anti-growth policies. Commerce Secretary Raúl Salinas Lozano, in particular, is a believer that political expediency is holding Mexico back from full development. To him, a remake of the revolution is needed to focus on hard cash instead of empty platitudes, and foreign deals could be mutually beneficial without giving up Mexican sovereignty. Despite the changes in the revolution and the constitutional ban on re-election, Lazario Cárdenas is still an extremely popular man, especially for the peasants. He has never forgotten. He stands as the most prominent figure fighting against the rightward shift of the party, and many people behind him in his new manifesto call for the return to socialism. Intellectuals and peasant groups have so far been partially satisfied with the Mexican miracle, but feel more is needed. The growing wealth disparity in the nation, constant corruption, and a dire situation for the countryside have made them increase in popularity. They have already poised to challenge the system in 1952, backing a leftist opposition. A new voice of the revolution could rise off of their demands and struggles. Many democracies keep a degree of impartial law enforcement, but the secret services of Mexico are another unofficial arm of the PRI. From the corrupt local police to the powerful DFS and the unofficial police state, it is perverse throughout the country. These men answer only to the governor of their states, and the governors only to the president. Even if society itself is not free from the corporatist PRI, despite nominally free unions, the Confederation de Trabajadores de Mexico takes advantage of the party's connection to almost monopolize organized labor. In return, it turns its membership out for the elections, which are counted, yet again, by state apparatuses beholden to the PRI. Likewise, the peasants and everyone else have similar organizations that serve to enhance the power of the party, both on the national and state level. Officially, the PRI rules of the coalition, of groups that are a little more than appendages to the state. The only legitimate alternative party to the PRI is the Partido Acción Nacional, the party for those excluded by the PRI's corporatist model. Its belief in democratic Mexico is unquestionable, but its meager existence is only allowed to give Mexican government some level of legitimacy. More radical groups exist outside of the bounds of legal recognition. The banned Communist Party and assorted leftist movements exist, and those of rightist disposition look to the Union Nacional San Anarquista. However, with them suppressed and the doors to powers locked, they face a long and hard road to achieving their goals. Okay, so I guess I should state immediately I don't speak Spanish, and I don't, you know, it's not taught in Canada, you know, in any capacity, so there will be a lot of butchering. Probably, I don't know if it'll probably be about the same as I butcher most things. Let's just get a lot of economist stuff on its way. So we'll get all of you going. I need to fix my keyboard, because apparently I've screwed this up somehow. Okay. So let's get all of our divisions. We have an army of 12 units. Honestly, that seems okay. And I guess we'll just throw you on the border with the US for now. I don't know really where else we would actually put you. Actually, we'll take our Army Navy experience for free. And we can ignore you for the time being. So what do we have as Mexico? Foreign policy right now. There's no global conflicts, and we do not have any, you know, global... you know, we can't send spies places. We're not powerful enough to kind of have that on the international stage. Okay, we also have the PRI button. The crisis. We have the Altulians crisis. We have the intelligentsia. Loyalty 65, power 15, cynicism 50. We then have the industrialists, loyalty 50, power 20, corruption 30. The party bureaucracy 70, 85, and 40. The workers are 70, 40, 50 for cronyism. The peasantry don't have much power, but they're very loyal to us. And the DFS, which is like the secret police. Okay. Now, I don't know if there's anything we can do with these directly. Oh, the crisis. Okay. The president's location is in Australia. The aggressive area maneuvers have forced down a Japanese spy plane over American waters in the frigid Northern Pacific. With its pilot captured, fleets marshalling, and the Japanese accusing the United States of militarizing the Altulian Islands, tensions have soared to their highest since the Second World War. To evade a third, our President Aldano Lopez Martinez has been asked by the United States President Nixon to mediate the crisis. Caught in Canberra, Australia, during his tour of Asian Pacific, Neto is now engaged in negotiations with everything on the line. In his absence, Gustavo Diaz Ordaz, Secretary of the Interior, has assumed presidential duties. Okay. That is fine. So I believe they've changed the Hawaiian missile crisis, so it's no longer in Hawaii. It is these islands instead. Which is fine. Okay. So what's our industry looking at? We have 18 production units right now. Mostly is actually going to... Mostly military, actually, which I'm not a big fan of. Let's go up to 15 civilian. I mean, everything's pretty bad right now. Our prison coverage is basically non-existent, so let's begin with building at least one prison, and we'll build that in Mexico City. Sounds good to me. I don't know how long this will take. Almost an entire year, which, I mean, it's not great, but it is what it is. Let's put... Is there anything we need to build? They want APCs, AFVs, fighters. Okay, so they want a lot of stuff in here. So let's get our first... Which one of you is the fighter? We'll get our basic jet fighter. Let's get the AFV chassis. And then we'll just go with like 3 convoys for now. I think that seems more than reasonable. We don't have any aluminum. We need some rubber. But again, we don't have that much money. We are a member of Pacto de Veracruz, which is led by the United Mexican State. Okay, so we have our own pact. So I mean, that's nice. That's nice. We have $16.89 billion in our. So we're almost like a top. We're probably like top 15. Honestly, it's not too bad. Inflation at 2.5%. Jet to GDP is at 48.5. It looks like it's going down. Deficit right now is at negative 3.1. GDP is at 16.8. Honestly, I don't think it's that bad. We're not spending any money on nuclear, which I mean is reasonable. We're going to cut down naval expenditures. I don't think it's going to do anything for us. And I guess we'll just keep everything else just where it is. That seems fine. GDP growth right now is at 5.37. I think that seems very reasonable. That is, okay, that's just going back to you. The heaviest tentacle, okay, can I please hover over this? The heaviest tentacles of the PRI Leviathan must class a vast and diverse nation. Its corporatist framework encompasses workers through the CTM and peasants through the CNC, while the CNOP, a hodgepodge of middle-class and elite groups, including the economy, vital industrialists, intellectuals, whether world-famous artists or humble students, are governed by different parts of the Licendio, and omnipresent party bureaucrats, and the lurking behind their shadows, the secretive and brutal DFS. The more power these groups have, the more they can propel Mexico forward. But if that power exceeds their loyalty to the PRI, they will become unmanageable and cease to provide benefits. Yet there's an alternative to loyalty: corruption. Groups can be subverted with bribes and blackmail, offering a form of control. If one that does scale down the benefits of their power, corruption benefits, unlike power, it will not be deactivated if it's above loyalty. Corruption, though, has its costs, such as increasing the price of projects. If the past any indication, PRI's grips on these critical constituencies will be tested by a series of crises. Leviathan, with its great mass to infinite instruments, must maintain its firm hold. Okay, so are any of you more powerful than you are loyal? The part of bureaucracy is. Okay, so we want to get you guys more loyal, if possible. Okay. And we're ready to go. By the way, did I have Fog of War off? I do. Look at me go. The last common thread. United States and Japanese warships crashed thousands of tons of steel through the surf and freezing rain of the Northern Pacific, readying the arms that would destroy each other. They began the short process of destroying the world. Mankind's slim hopes for peace, meanwhile, rode a thin copper cable from Canberra to Sydney, through Hawaii and San Francisco to Washington, D.C. They clung, to be exact, calm words of Mexican President Adolfo Lopez Matias. Stage withdrawal of both fleets, the return of Captain Asho. Mexico will also carry out an extensive investigation onto the alleged treaty violations in and around the Altuians. The silence that followed lasted 5, 10, 15 long seconds. Then the receiver cracked with life with the voice of President Richard Nixon. Adolfo, that's not going to work. There doesn't need to be an investigation. The spy plane pilot is the proof. We can't afford it at this time. I've got, the line crackled, telling me that there's going to be a nuclear war within a week. The air ripped out of Matias' throat. But he managed to choke out. I will raise your concerns with Foreign Minister Fujiyama, Richard. His voice was steadying now, gaining force. But this investigation will take place following the withdrawals. You asked me to mediate this crisis, and that requires thorough addressing both parties' claims. Silence again. Matias' eyes were burning, but he had watched He watched a ripple creep across Lake Burleigh's griffin below. His hands were white, clenching the receiver and the hotel suite's desk. Nixon again, only 2 words. It's unacceptable. A woman's voice, Australian English, the operator. Your line dropped. Would you like to try to reconnect? Humanity's lifeline is dawned, and the war draws ever closer. Excellent. Do you think do you think we'll be able to get out of January this episode? There's absolutely no way that happens. Second president. 3:27 a.m., the hour of judgment. Secretary of the Interior Gustavo Diaz-Ordaz sat alone. Overhead, fluorescent lights illuminating his harsh features and the harsh facts before him. His hand, heavy with exhaustion, fanned out the report after damning report. DFS, FBI, the embassy in Washington, D.C., the American embassy in the federal district, his own notes. They all said the same. President Lopez Matias was dragging the Pacific to war, the world's to nuclear oblivion. Matias' commitment to the Estrada doctrine of neutrality had warped his mission to mediate the Altuias crisis. He insisted on equating Japan's phantom claim to treaty violations in the demilitarized islands with actual violation of American airspace by concrete spy planes. Again and again, he pushed this futile, useless investigation, ignoring the ever-growing risk of a catastrophe in the north, as two hostile fleets swelled and drew closer. After the aerial collision today near Atu, a volley of sources stated that the nuclear exchange was imminent. Ordaz raised his hand from the evidence, 3:31 a.m. If he could speak to the president, he, Matias's most trusted confidant, could sway him. But Adolfo was somewhere in the air between Canberra and Tokyo, hours and hours ahead of him. And no, Matias would be no help here. He was soft with the Japanese, drawing the matter out as he had the rail strikes, talking and talking, when what he needed was a firm hand and firm action. In the absence of the president, Ordaz had the power and the duty to safeguard the Mexican people. 3:40 a.m. Ordaz wiped his brow. A simple, true, neutral proposition. A formal apology from Japan, release of the pilot by the United States, and a withdrawal of both fleets. He arranged for it to be sent to the Japanese-American embassies immediately. It's time for a special edition of the Washington Post, New York Times, the Chicago Tribune. Okay, gets the event meltdown. A misstep could plunge the world into darkness. Now, I'm going to assume there's no way to actually fuck up these talks so bad that you just end the game immediately. It would be very funny, but I can't imagine it'll actually happen. Amid the relentless traffic of the Paseo de la Reforma, a gray surveillance van hid. As Raul Solis Lezono maneuvered his jet black Toyota to the halt outside of the Japanese embassy, he wondered who his occupants were. Would it be Yankees or Mexicans that got him accused of treason? Salinas' schedule said that he was here, as Secretary of Industry and Commerce, for routine discussion of Japanese foreign district investment. It would not say that an official could arrange a meeting with the ambassador, Hayushi Karu, in the midst of the largest diplomatic crisis in the Second World War, following the bombshell peace proposals leaked to every American paper, and it sought more than a new factory in Jalisco. The even pressure of Salinas' handshake, the steady grin of entering the ambassador's quarters, did not betray a man taking the greatest risk of his life. The diplomat, besieged by Tokyo's hostile questions and demands for the last 48 hours, gave the barest minimum of pleasantries before leaning back, weary eyes of the northerner. Salinas withdrew a bound portfolio and proffered it to the diplomat as he spoke. Despite these Pacific tensions, I want to reassure you on the fruits of Mexico's commercial partnership with the sphere. I'll cover recent trends before we discuss investment opportunities. Page 3. A heavy tap of his finger on the folio contains a key detail. Amid the relentless parade of graphs and data, a message hid, or perhaps screamed, proposal created by Ordaz, without Matias or cabinet knowledge. Do not withdraw from talks. Matias will negotiate. Forward immediately to Tokyo. Ambassador Hayisha, eyes wide, stammered as he would prepare a telegram immediately. Salinas, who had been keeping up with a platter of statistics, smiled. For all his potential listeners, the economic declared, only with appropriate urgency, resolve the alluvious issues must come first. Blessed be the peacemakers. What are you? That's just telling us we can't build some more stuff. I understand I don't have enough factories to actually build everything that you want me to build. The weight of the world. Deliverance or damnation waited on the other side of that door. President López Matias strained as he kept standing. The pain in his head, the exhaustion of sleepless body grew, and with every minute the United States ambassador to Japan spent conferring with Nixon by telegram. And so did the risk of another catastrophic escalation in the Andalusians. He had entered this inferno upon landing in Haneda. The scant reception to greet him glares that no translation. At the Mexican embassy, a frantic message from Secretary of External Relations Burand laid out Ordaz's borderline treasonous declaration to justly and expeditiously resolve this crisis, and barrage a bile unleashed by Tokyo in response. Burand and Secretary Salinas Lezono had managed to keep the sphere in the talks, but only just, by calling in every favor of the respective networks. And so Matias had arrived in the room. In this suit for 28 hours of hell. The Mexican initial smugness was replaced with fury when it was revealed that he could not and would not enforce Diaz's terms on the Japanese. The ferocious accusations of Japanese duplicity only quieted with news of another near miss off Kishka. Fear becoming Mateos' thread as he weaves together a new agreement from these shambles. The release of Captain Asho, a detailed plans for fleet withdrawals, and no Japanese apology for the spy plane overflight. Ordaz had ripped away any chance of an investigation into if and why the Americans had violated the demilitarization zone of the Altoians, with Matias only able to secure a thin compensation of a covert spy exchange favoring Japan in return. If Nixon torpedoed this agreement now, there would be no other chance. As the door creaked at last, Matthias' breath caught in his throat. At the sight of the thumbs-up grin, he exhaled. The world can breathe again. And I will say with that, that's going to be a good time for us to end this very first episode. So I hope you will join me on this maybe long journey. We'll see how long it takes. But thanks for watching. I will see you next time. Have a great day and goodbye.